Well, obviously, I come from a country which is not in the Eurozone, and these are the kind of problems that we predicted. My guess is, and it's only a guess because I don't think anybody knows for sure, money is running out. The IMF loan needs to be repaid in the next week or so. I don't think they can find the money, but I suspect at the 11th hour they'll do a deal. I was talking to a German colleague today who is a real expert that Germany will have to pay in the end and keep them in the Eurozone. They may default on some of their debt and stay in the Eurozone. That is the kind of strange situation. They could particularly default on, say, the international loans outside of the Eurozone and still stay in the Eurozone club. That might obviously take the pressure off them. But I think there is obviously a desire to keep them in, but people are fed up. They were very fed up with the finance minister, who wasn't taking the negotiations very seriously. I gather now his role is being diminished. In Athens today, the Troika inspection team will be allowed to have direct access to documents in the ministries to look at what's happening in terms of budgetary spending. Before that, they had to receive the documents in their hotel, which is a bit humiliating. So things are moving on, but we are very near to the end game here, and I think that my guess, as I say, they will stay in the Eurozone. They may default on some of their debt.
Why, by all costs, by all means, they should stay in Eurozone? Because right from the start, they didn't belong to Europe because they didn't fulfill the Copenhagen criteria.
Well, this is obviously a big question. They were allowed to join back in 2000 or thereabouts. I remember abstaining in the vote. We had a consultation vote in the Economic and Monetary Affairs Committee, which I was a full member of then. It was more of a geopolitical decision to bring them into the club. Clearly they have an important geopolitical role. We now see that they are playing sorts of, Russia cards, that they're going to get bailout money from Russia and fall under the Russian economic sphere of influence. That's clearly upset some people and worried some people. It's an interesting kind of threat that Tsipras' government has posed. But there is a strong geopolitical reason for keeping Greece within the European Union and the Eurozone if you're using foreign policy objectives. I understand that as a foreign policy specialist. But at the end of the day, the big net contributor countries like Germany, they have to decide whether they're prepared to dig into their pockets and find the necessary funds to pay for Greek overspending over many years.
Don't you think that this political will imposed on European citizens will also influence the decision of British citizens during the referendum?
Well, first of all, my party has to win the general election on the 7th of May. It's only, less than 2 weeks now to go. So, of course, if there is a Conservative government, a single-party government, which is another big if as well, given the opinion polls, but we're hoping for that result, of course. David Cameron's promised a referendum for 2017. It's still 2 years away. Whether the Greece matter will still be a major factor then remains to be seen. 2 years is a long time in politics. But clearly, the fact that we've stayed out of the Eurozone does demonstrate that there is the possibility of having variable geometry, different arrangements for different countries. We've stayed out of the Eurozone. David Cameron no longer participates in the bailout programs for Eurozone countries that are struggling. That's a very good thing. And so I think it actually shows that Britain can have its own arrangements, renegotiate certain aspects of the treaty and still stay in the European Union. Certainly that's my line, and if there is a referendum campaign, which I hope there will be, I will be fighting to stay in, and those are the kind of points that I'll be making to the British people.